COOGS House. Yes, it's just the first weekend of basketball season, but Houston's already in one of the biggest matchups of the year.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater that can't step by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first, at this point, first listen in the afternoon, maybe listen on the way home from work today, and a bonus episode here at Locked On Cougs breaking down Houston and Auburn this week. And today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. More on that later. But if you want to join the conversation, don't know what to say, tell us in the comments if you think water is wet. It's a hot button topic. This is a hot game. Houston, I guess you could kind of say, hosts Auburn in the Toyota Center Saturday night in KenPom rankings. This is number 1 versus number 2. An AP poll, it's 4 and 11. This is a big one, and it's an exciting game in a week where both schools are on bye weeks from their football seasons. Side note, both teams are actually kind of at the same place in football, but have different opinions on it being there. Anyway, it's a fun time to be watching college basketball, getting back into college basketball season. First, I want to talk some about kind of the opponent and what my scout kind of gave me as I watched their game against Vermont, Auburn and Vermont, and where I think some matchups are. Second, I want to get into some more predictive kind of measures. It's just a bonus episode, so we're going to try and get in and out of here quickly and talk through this. So on scouting Auburn, I want to stress that they played Vermont, who has been a tournament team like 5 or 6, it might be 7 years in a row, 7 tournaments in a row, I should say, because the one got canceled, obviously. But Vermont is always a tournament team and usually is threatening to, if not upsetting, someone in the tournament in that first round. They've won that American East Conference a bunch of times, and Auburn gave them a 50-piece, and it was really, really impressive. It shot Auburn up the KenPom polls here, which is an analytical data look at things. KenPom's right about a lot. KenPom is right about a lot of things in his statistical measures. I was impressed by how fast they played. It's because we're getting to the predictions in the second segment, but this is kind of be a styles make fights kind of game, I think. And Auburn is a very strong offensive weapon or offensive team. Through everyone's first game of the season, Auburn was top 10 in effective field goal percentage, one of the 35 best three-point percentage teams, which is crazy when you factor in that they had one of the highest volumes in America, one of the top 20 teams in terms of percentage of their own shots that were three-pointers, and then to carry that higher percentage across that. They're really, really efficient offensive team. They get a bunch of different ways. They spread you out, do a lot of 5-out kind of action, and that's because they got a guy that's kind of changed his game a lot. That could be National Player of the Year. Certainly a favorite to win SEC Player of the Year, and Johni Broome. That's Johni Broome, Johni Broome with an E at the end. You remember him and his name from when Houston played Auburn in the second round of the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. Johni Broome was a more traditional center then. He's extended his game out to the three-point arc. He actually made a three-pointer in their Vermont game. I think he made 2, actually. He's put the ball on the floor a little bit better. He's still maybe not defending in that space as well. But from an offensive perspective, he's moved his game out there. They've got a couple different point guards that they play. They play Dylan Cardwell. Sorry, not Cardwell. They play. He's the big guy that's on my notes for next. They play at the point guard about Denver Jones, Todd Pettiford. Todd Pettiford is he listed at 6'6'1". I bet he's a little shorter than that. But he's a true freshman. Comes off the bench for them. Was McDonald's All-American last year. I was really impressed by his speed and footwork on both ends of the floor. I think it's a matter of time before that kid starts. And frankly, Houston getting them in early November might actually help them from that perspective. As far as how matchups go, I don't think Uzan's out of his Milos Uzan, Houston starting point guard, is out of his element guarding either of these guys. Pettiford's really quick, but Milos is so much bigger. I think that kind of will negate some of it because not like Milos is slow. The matchup on the floor, though, when we get to our predictions, is going to be really important. It's going to be Juwan Roberts and Johni Broome down low to try and offset that, kind of, sort of. That's what you'll see next to my notes. Dylan Cardwell, matching up with, we presume, Javier Francis. Javier practiced for Houston on Thursday. He missed the opener. It sounded like they were precautiously resting a groin. Those groins can be tricky, but if he's practicing on Thursday, going to do walkthrough and all that shooting stuff on Friday, imagine he's good to go. And I don't think that they'll put him out here if he wasn't. But I also was getting the impression from people that on Monday, if it were a game where they were worried about winning it because of a quality opponent, he probably would have played Monday. So Francis should be good to go this weekend if people talking to me are correct. We'll see, right? But that matchup, Dylan Cardwell and Javier Francis, may be enough to offset whatever happens in a close contest between Johni Broome and Juwan Roberts at the power forward spot. That's a fun one, though. The big guys in this game are a lot of fun because Houston's guys play such great defense in space, and Auburn wants to space people out and use that to their advantage. So someone's going to gain an advantage in that matchup. The big thing that happened in the Vermont game is, as I mentioned, Auburn shot the three ball extremely well and extremely frequently. Miles Kelly, a transfer in from Georgia Tech, he came into the game. He was 7 of 9 from three. You heard that right, 7 of 9 from three. And he wasn't like jacking. I thought it was interesting, though, that when you hear 7 of 9, you kind of think of a finesse, skilled, offensive guy, whatever. This dude's kind of a bruiser on the defensive end. They got him listed here at 6'6", $195. If you told me he was 6'7", 200, I'd believe you. He's a big kid, and honestly, and going from Georgia Tech to Auburn, he's anxious to get involved in a lot more winning. And I imagine this is a big stage for him, kind of a show out moment. We'll see how it looks this weekend. My first thought, he admittedly did come off the bench in the Vermont game for Auburn. I still think I start either Sharp or Arsenault on him, depending on which one's in the game. Arsenault might be a little bit better matchup, but Emmanuel Sharp's got some sturdiness, weight to him. Even he's lost weight, so he's in much better shape, but he's still got some strength. I think can move him around a little bit. I think the big thing that Houston should do in this game, I think it will be depth. I know that against Virginia, that Auburn played a lot of guys, and so people are like, Parker, you're an idiot. They played a lot of guys in that game. They go really deep. My thought process is that they were 50 piecing that team in a close game. Do you really go that far down your bench? One guy to keep an eye on is Chaney Johnson. They're like 6'7", undersized, rotational big. Frankly, Chaney Johnson reminds me a lot of. He's an upperclassman, so it's not quite the same. But of like an underclassman Houston big guy, you see like with the redshirt freshman kind of guy that still kind of he's got a high motor, is kind of figuring out where he fits into things and is throwing his body around a lot. Shane Johnson's that really well for them. I look at them and I'm really impressed. This is a team with a real shot to go deep in March, and I am excited to get to play them in opening weekend, and frankly, getting to do it at the Toyota Center, connected to a Rice and I believe Florida State game happening right before, is pretty cool, right? It's a pretty cool opportunity for the Houston Cougars and Kelvin Sampson's squad. Kelvin Sampson's kind of built this program to where like now it is kind of the destination. Auburn's going to bolster their schedule by coming to Houston and playing them at the Toyota Center, right? It wasn't that long ago that we were trying to bolster our schedule by going to SEC schools to play them at their place, right? This is kind of the inverse of that. Now, I know on, I think it was Thursday's media availability, Sampson said he'd rather play this game at Fertitta if possible, and that's, when he plays in front of their home fans and whatnot. I do think that there is something to be said, though, about playing in a big-time stadium and being ready for things in March. March is theoretical neutral site games, but also intentionally scheduled near, like, the number one seed gets to play closer to home, theoretically, right? And so I think that all that is to say that this one of those games that will feel like a Sweet 16 game and it's only going to be played on November 9th. I mean, how awesome is that for the program and the fans? Like to get to play a Sweet 16, Elite Eight feeling game. I mean, if you told me crystal ball right now that in two different parts of the bracket you had Houston and Auburn in your Final Four, I don't think people would call you crazy. I think people would be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then 1-2 team on KenPom for a reason. They had impressive first victories against smaller schools. It translates. They're both projected to do very well. They both probably have, one of the, if not the favorite to win conference player of the year in their respective conferences. These are two really good basketball programs, two really good coaches. And so it's interesting to see where we're at on that. Now, I want to make some predictions, get a little bit more nitty gritty into what I think will happen after having watched this. But before we get to that, I got to tell you about our buddies over at LinkedIn Jobs, because if you're not hiring on LinkedIn Jobs, you're just doing it wrong. You're just doing it wrong. LinkedIn is not just a job board. First things first. It helps you hire professionals that you cannot find anywhere else, even those who are not actively seeking a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professional like professional on LinkedIn. Go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Cougs, are bringing a bonus Friday afternoon episode going into the weekend because Houston's got a big weekend. Houston kind of hosts Auburn at the Toyota Center in one of the biggest college basketball games in the month of November this year. It's number 4 versus 11 in the AP poll, but in KenPom, which is an analytical look at things, right? The high ranking of 1 and 2, Houston and Auburn, respectively. This is a really, really tough matchup. And when it gets to predictions, obviously people call me a homer and they're right, but I will say that I think Houston's got a couple edges in this game. Auburn's really good. They're going to shoot the ball, and sometimes shooting matters, right? They shot extremely well at home against Vermont. I think a couple factors will bring that number a little bit closer down to earth. One, playing Toyota Center, you can talk about sight lines and shooting touch and whatever on a pro court, but truthfully, it's a road game for all intents and purposes in terms of shooting, right? Second, it's not just any neutral site air quotes game. It's in the Toyota Center. Houston feels really strongly about their basketball program. There's no football game this weekend. It's the marquee event for all things Houston Cougars. On Game Time, as recording this podcast, you can still get in the lower bowl for $70 a seat, all price, all things included. You get to watch 2 basketball games with that ticket. So I think there should be a lot of people getting tickets Friday, Saturday, get into this thing. Really, really exciting matchup. I think that aspect of it being at home, being close to home, makes it a Houston favorite in that instance. I think it'll kind of pull the shooting numbers down some for Auburn. And then last but not least, those are all external factors. Houston's played in the last 3 or 4 years several teams that shoot the ball really, really well, right? This is a good shooting team, a really, really good shooting team. It's not the only good shooting team in America. It's not the only good shooting team. It's not the best shooting team in the last 4 or 5 years, anything like that. Houston's defended the other teams really well, too. They do a really good job of running people off the three-point line, forcing them to take contested threes, forcing them to take long twos on a dribble pull-up, and those kind of things to kind of alter that analytical data that makes you want to take threes in the first place. Houston will have a plan, and what I feel comfortable about is that Houston will execute that plan at a high level because of how many guys they've had in the program back to Houston to execute that plan, right? LJ Cryer was here last year. Emmanuel Sharp's been here 2 years. Jalen Roberts been here a decade. It feels like it's actually been, this is year 6. Javier Francis is a senior, right? Terrence Arsenault didn't play a whole lot last year because the Achilles injury, but was playing really well when he did, and he'd been here his freshman year before that. JoJo Tugler in his second year. Cordell Jefferson, while he is a freshman, got to sit through all the stuff last year and be a part of the program. Said a lot on the court last year, right? This really feels like a team with Malik Wilson. I should stress he now is his third year if you count his redshirt year, as he was the defensive guy for the scout team in a redshirt year. I mean, this is a team with a lot of experience, a lot of time on task, playing under Sampson in this defensive system. And so, while they do have to kind of bring some new guys along every year, I think playing a high caliber opponent this early in the season, that will matter a lot more, right? The idea that if we played this game in February, March, the transfer portal aspect of what Auburn did and who they pulled in, the gelling and all that will be a little bit different. Having so many guys that understand the defensive scheme, system, culture, etc., is going to be really, really important in this game. Right? I think defense wins out here. I think Houston wins an ugly one. The trick will be who dictates the pace better. With Houston's deep roster this year, I maintain and will continue to maintain they can play fast. They played just 68 possessions in their game against Jackson State, right? And for what that's worth, there were 352 teams that played more possessions in their first game. That's a really slow pace. Conversely, Auburn, in a blowout game, so not like they were like pushing the pace necessarily, had 73 possessions in their game, nearly a full half dozen more. I guess that is, that's half dozen more for each team, and it's several times down the court. That was in the top 65 as far as how many possessions a team gets in a game, and so their pace is a little bit faster. The slow game comes down to Houston's level. I could see Houston winning like 72 to 66, right, somewhere in there. If this game gets close to the Auburn level, I still think Houston can compete. I just feel like the score is a little bit higher. So because there's more possessions, more shots, etc. So in that instance, I'd probably put this one at, if it gets close to the Auburn pace, somewhere, 84 to 80 kind of area. Regardless, I'm taking Houston in either direction because of J'Wan Roberts' matchup with Johni Broome. I think I could not pick a better player in America to have to cover Johni Broome in this kind of situation, right? He saw him 2 years ago in the tournament, right? So he knows the low post stuff. He knows he's added to his game. Roberts added to his as well. They're both well established in their systems. Roberts is a sixth-year senior. Johni Broome is a fifth-year senior. These are two, I would argue, the two best power forwards in all of college basketball. I'm still giving the edge to Roberts. I just think he's in line to be a conference player of the year kind of guy this year in the Big 12. And I think that starts the defensive end in this game. The other aspect of this too is that I think Houston's number of guys they can throw in the backcourt out, whether it's Arsenault, Sharp, Wilson, right? A bunch of different guys they can throw out there. Uzan, a lot of guys can get there and play some good defense on this. Bringing Francis back is a big deal. We don't really know we're going to get out of Mercy Miller. He's very effective offensively. And it's a game where he can trust the defense behind him. You might see more of Mercy if he's got to guard guys in space because the 5 out. You might not see as much Mercy. So we'll kind of see how he adjusts to the game in his couple minutes he gets. And Sampson's great at playing the flow there, right? If he puts Mercy out there and it's a net negative or net even, he gets her, right? He doesn't get, not like permanently, but he takes him off the floor, right? If Mercy's offense is good and his defense is good enough, Kelvin ain't dumb. He leaves him out there, right? And so I think with how many guys we're talking through here, I just think there's too many options for Houston to not come away with the victory as far as defensive guys in this game. I am interested to hear your thoughts, your takes. Obviously, I am a Houston homer. I'm proud of it. I just think this team's that good. And frankly, I think it's a kind of marquee win that for a team that schedule gets poo-pooed on a lot throughout the year, this Auburn one worked out pretty well as a team to play, right? And Houston's got a handful of other teams in the top 25, top 10 before we get to conference play as well. But this one's going to be important. And I'm excited about it. Hope you are too. I'll be live tweeting the game at Painsworth512 throughout it on Saturday night. I am shifting stuff to other social media platforms as well. So you can find me on TikTok at Painsworth512, Blue Sky at Painsworth512, On Instagram, I'm at Painsworth Sports. I'm doing a more of a sportsy kind of Instagram, so that way you don't have to like look at pictures of my baby all the time. So check me out there at Painsworth Sports on Instagram. We're doing all kinds of content coming away all the time. We will be live after the game Saturday night as well for a post-game show. More information on that throughout the game on Twitter X or whatever you want to call it. So make sure you tune in to that one. Thank you for making us your first, last, every single listen of the day on this wonderful Friday. Or if you listen to us on Saturday morning, thank you for that as well as you get ready for the game. Locked on Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.